A meeting with the elders, just sought to talk to them for direction, for everything. They told her the classics, like, don't talk about it. We don't want to bring a reproach on Jehovah's name, so we don't want to make the religion look bad. It's in Jehovah's hands. He'll fix it in the new system when the world ends and everyone who's not a Jehovah's Witness will die. And they just pretty much dismissed everything. When I woke up, it was about a solid month of depression and sadness and crying and panic and anxiety attacks. I found out everything I was taught was a lie.
Once someone starts learning about the group and it kind of hits them that they've been in a cult, there's a lot of trauma that can happen around that. Realizing that you've missed out on a lot of things in life, lost milestones, lost achievements and accomplishments, that's very distressing.
A month later, I had my little DSLR that I had saved up for because I wanted to be a filmmaker, and all of a sudden I was free to like chase that, and I was like, I'm gonna vlog because people need to know about this. And I just want to help 10 people. So that got me involved in activism with child abuse. When I started, there was a handful of YouTubers, and there's a lot of Reddit posts, but now there's tons of YouTubers.
I am a survivor of childhood sexual abuse.
I don't remember exactly when the abuse started.
Lots of people knew. Nobody did anything about it.
No one called the police.
I myself have been through a ton of abuse.
Is there policies that's protecting pedophiles?
I went to the internet to search for Jehovah's Witness teachings, and I saw that there were a lot of people who came out as victims of child abuse in the organization. I knew what child abuse was, but never in my life had I imagined that this was such a strong ongoing issue. I discovered that the Jehovah's Witnesses were not giving their documents about alleged abuse to the court. They decided to keep this all hidden somewhere in the Kingdom Hall, and most members inside the organization didn't even know it was occurring.
I think that probably 95, 99% of active Jehovah's Witnesses have no clue about the abuse that goes on. If they were looking at it like this actually happened, it would blow most people away.
I had a very good idea of where these documents were kept.
I went back to the memorial. I was hoping to have some kind of proof.
I knew that someone had to go into the Kingdom Halls and get these documents.
I found this elder. I grew up with him. I had a past history and relationship with him, and I was hoping that this would trigger something human to come out.
Should be some guys dressed kind of nice that just came in. Right here? Yeah, I think so.
I was hoping to have some kind of proof and get a confession about my abuse. He said that he'd love to talk to me about the depression that I was going through and how I was feeling about my child abuse growing up.
I've been having a lot of like nightmares, flashbacks, and just solid amounts of depression based off of some stuff that happened to me as a child. And I don't feel like it was handled properly.
You just learn to live with it and put it behind you. Try not to bring it up, try not to dwell on it. And,
Try not to bring it up or dwell on it, but then that's not dealing with the issue either.
the same thing happened with my kids with breakfast. If nothing was done, if there's nothing done back in those days, like my kids, there's nothing done, there's nothing can be done.
That makes you feel okay as a father?
I can't change it.
Number one, you need two witnesses.
It just sounds like there's a lot of holes in the policies, and
I don't know what kind of holes you're looking for, kid. There's no holes in the policy. I guarantee there's no holes in any policy. Wherever your head's going with that, there's no holes in the policy.
I know the names of the guys that hurt me, and neither of you have asked.
Okay, so
that concerns me. That's not dealing with the issue, because if they're still out there and they're still around children, you gotta take precautions to protect the children. Children first, no matter what. Then why aren't you doing it right now?
I don't think anything has changed in the organization. There's one of the most stubborn religious organizations where they just throw children's lives away like it's nothing. People need to know about this. There's no protections in place for children, and they're going to take the side of the abuser because there's no eyewitness. So nothing's changed. Hey brothers and sisters, if you haven't seen the Going to Memorial as an Apostate video yet, you should watch that.
Although the governing body tries to say that people will lie about us on the internet.
Be careful on the internet. We're just warning you, that's all we can do is admonish. Stick with what we have authorized. You'll be safe.
There's no way that this could all be lied about.
New sexual abuse allegations tonight against Jehovah's Witnesses.
The alleged victim's claims an elder
says she was molested by a fellow church member.
A pattern of alleged child abuse.
The commission learned that of those hundreds of cases, none was reported to police.
At the time, I was still a member of the congregation.
This is what Jehovah, the God of Israel, says.
So everyone in the congregation saw me as a regular, spiritually strong, trusted member.
Before he resurrects him, he's going to create a perfect place for them, a paradise here on earth.
But on the inside, I had my doubts. I was only going there to keep my family and friends. My father was very high up. He was a well-respected member. He had a lot of privilege, and he pretty much was the leader of our congregation, and he wanted myself to grow up and be the same way. So he taught me a lot, and I found that growing up I knew much more than the typical witness regarding what goes on behind the scenes. My father taught me that when something occurred inside the Kingdom Hall, that brother or sister would meet with a couple of elders in a secret meeting. It was just that person who had some problem and 2 or 3 elders speaking with them.
A judicial committee is a group of 3 elders in the congregation who will convene for a series of private meetings with someone who has committed a sin or to hear an accusation. They believe, and they're trying to get to the bottom of it, with the end goal of, do we have mercy on this person or do we disfellowship them?
This would all be documented and filed away and locked for no one to see except the elders. I was curious as to what is really hidden in the Kingdom Halls, what's really locked away.
At that point, when Judas started getting curious, we had been dating for about 5 or 6 years. I felt the need to take action because we had the ability to. We had a set of picks that we used. Some doors were very difficult to get open. So in that instance, we would go to meetings during the day, crack open one of the windows, and then come back later at night and crawl through the windows. I was paranoid the whole time. Every small noise I heard, I would pause, be quiet, then we can continue. We went through all the files that we thought were suspicious. We had little knives to cut open the files. We had our glue sticks and then glue it back together as if it were never opened.
I came across this big envelope titled "Child Abuse, Do Not Destroy."
We found way more pedophile activity than we anticipated.
Hundreds of pages in just one congregation.
These were people I grew up with. These were people I knew. So it shocked me.
I could not believe what I was reading and how extensive, how severe, and how detailed these documents were. It was horrifying.
Seeing the pedophiles not getting the consequences they deserved infuriated me. So that caused us to act and get as many files as we could on them.
I felt that it was my responsibility to get these documents and get them out to the public and really show the true nature of the organization. I ended up posting on an XJW page on the internet with one small letter that I found, a sample, so to speak. Once I posted that, I began to receive a lot of messages. One message that grabbed my attention was from someone named John Redwood.
There is a subreddit group called XJW, which has something like 55,000 members. And an individual had posted some information that indicated that he may have found some documents inside of congregations that dealt directly with child sexual abuse.
We gained each other's trust, and I saw that we were fighting for the same cause.
I received an anonymous package of documents which was very extensive. Many of the documents were handwritten notes. They were notes from elders. They were notes from the victims themselves and from Watchtower's communication back and forth to the congregations. And I knew immediately that this was serious.
I really have evolved over the decades as I've learned more and more about the Jehovah's Witnesses to really think of them as a more and more destructive cult. The pedophilia, predatory institution, the shunning, the fear of Armageddon, how many people have been harmed by that institutional abuse.
For example, if you take the blood issue, tens and tens of thousands of people have died for not taking a blood transfusion.
People have died for no reason based on an arbitrary misreading of the Torah.
Refusing blood transfusions comes from a loosely interpreted scripture in Acts where you are told not to eat blood, and apparently that's the same as taking a blood transfusion, I guess. That's how they see it anyway.
What does the Bible say about blood transfusions? The Bible commands that we not ingest blood. Note the following scriptures. Genesis 9:4. God allowed Noah and his family to add animal flesh to their diet after the flood, but commanded them not to eat the blood.
People die for this all the time, like even children, like little babies die from it. And nobody bats an eye. In fact, people will usually put these people on a pedestal, the people that die. They're martyred.
That's something that I think is hard for people to wrap their minds around if they're not a part of the religion.
The 7-year-old boy facing death because his parents' religious beliefs prohibit blood transfusions.
Because both parents are Jehovah's Witnesses, they do not want to see their baby girl get any foreign blood, even if it is a matter of life and death.
It's thought the medical team wanted to carry out a blood transfusion, but the family, being Jehovah's Witnesses, refused. 6 hours later, he died.
Jehovah's Witnesses are causing people to die due to not taking blood transfusions that shouldn't be dead. It's pretty nefarious.
I believe that God wanted us to be loyal and not accept a blood transfusion because the life was in the blood. I never questioned any of that. To me, it was always a matter of loyalty.
You can change people's thoughts and get them to engage in behaviors that are against self-preservation. And I think that's the scary thing, and witnesses do that really, really well.
Most people will do what they've been taught is the right thing to do, even if it means losing their life.
I had already started questioning the religion, the cult. And eventually, I started to think, maybe God is real, but it's not this.
I don't know what I'm doing.
My mom was baptized when she was 12. My mom was married when she was 14. The elders sanctioned that, by the way. They were the ones who told my grandmother to do that. My grandma tried to make my mom live with my dad, but my mom was a kid, and she wanted to come back home, and she did come back home. Originally, I was raised by my mother. I was living with her and my grandmother at the same time.
Hey, I'm over here, babe.
I was indoctrinated from, like, the womb on. I was 2 years old, and I'm walking around quoting scripture. I had questions my whole childhood, and they never got answered. Growing up as a Jehovah's Witness and being part of the LGBT community was very stressful, and it was filled with a lot of self-hatred and repression.
Keep clean before Jehovah and enjoy his blessing. The first way you can do this is by avoiding tight-fitting clothes that can identify you with homosexuality. These clothes contribute to changing people's opinion of homosexuality because they come to see it as normal and acceptable.
I asked my grandmother, I remember, how do we know that we're the right religion? How do we know it's not something else? And she would just tell me, because the Bible says so. She would always give me answers like that just weren't satisfying and didn't make sense. My mom started to drink more in her early to mid-20s.
Work.
She started abusing painkillers. When I was 17 years old, my mom got very ill after a car accident. And she ended up in the hospital. We didn't realize it at the time, but she was suffering from a lot of organ damage from chronic alcoholism. All of her organs were failing. They were telling us that she needed a blood transfusion. My mom had brain swelling at the time, so they said that she couldn't make the decision for herself. They were leaving the choice up to my grandma. I distinctly remember there being like a whole swarm of elders. They were the hospital liaison committee. That's what they're called.
Serious medical situations are stressful, and decisions often need to be made quickly, including those involving blood. The Hospital Liaison Committee arrangement provides comfort and help at the right time.
They were there basically to make sure that my grandmother made the right choice.
The hospital liaison committees have been a very powerful tool in the hand of Jehovah to provide this support and strength when the blood issue arises. What a beautiful gift Jehovah has given his people through the fine work of the hospital liaison committees. Truly, this has been a strengthening aid for us to keep abstaining from blood.
Often these brothers coming, this committee, to the bedside of a Jehovah's Witness who is in distress or in a health situation, it can turn into coercion, like trying to convince a person not to take blood that could save their life.
When a child or any family member needs a blood transfusion and they can't do it, you know, Jehovah's Witnesses will make sure that they're always on the scene, reminding you of the reasons why you should obey these things, even though they're against human nature as a parent.
They would be in the waiting room. They were in her room. They were surrounding her bed, you know, just a bunch of suits, strong-arming an old lady into killing her daughter.
Why did you buy this for, Mommy?
My grandmother knew what she was supposed to do. She was supposed to sacrifice her daughter to the organization. For hours and hours, different doctors came in and they were trying to like tell her the mortal peril she was putting my mother in by allowing her to have this surgery without any blood transfusion. But still, even after all those hours of deliberation, my grandmother, of course, said no blood and signed off on the consent form, and that was it. She passed away. When my mother died, that was pretty much the last straw for me. I had such a hard time reconciling how somebody could do that to their own child. I took that as a sign like, my family means business about this religion. Like, they are willing to kill each other over this. I'm going to go and try to talk to my grandmother about what happened with my mother. The last time I spoke to her was over a year ago. I just want to understand why. I'm on my way to go and confront my grandmother. It's been over a year since I've seen her, and I'm really hoping that I can just have at least a coherent conversation with her. Oh shit, that's my grandma's garage opening. That's fantastic. Oh, let's do it. All right. Hi. Hi. Can I have a hug? Huh? Can I have a hug? It's been like a year since I've seen you. I'm sorry. I just haven't seen you in forever. There's always been some stuff I wanted to ask you, like about my mom. When you had to make that choice, was it hard?
She chose, and actually, I am happy.
But
to make the right decision.
It didn't hurt?
No.
It didn't hurt you to do that?
No, honey.
Not at all?
That's what she wanted.
But Mom,
she'll be resurrected.
Yeah, but she wasn't even a practicing Jehovah's Witness at the time.
It doesn't matter. She made a good choice, and I'm so happy.
One more hug. I'm sorry. I never get to see you anymore.
Okay, well...
I hope everything's okay.
Time is short.
Time is short.
And you can see your mom again, because she is going to be resurrected.
It's upsetting that a group would control people this way. So once it kind of hits them, it's going through the process of saying, I'm still here, I'm still alive, and I'm going to make the most of this.
It becomes very important to speak up, and everyone finds their own way to do that. A lot of Jehovah's Witnesses, when you leave, people are empowered now to say, hey, this happened to me, and I'm going to speak up about it because it was wrong and I don't want it to happen to somebody else.
I've always wanted to crash Kingdom Halls. I've always wanted to go in there and say something to them. I can't help but think about all the people that are still stuck in the cult. I'm planting some kind of a seed. I just want them to hear some of what I'm saying. They don't have to hear everything. Just enough to make them think, is that something that's worth looking into?
Jehovah, our Heavenly Father, I come to you in prayer and ask that you please forgive us for your ever-changing blood doctrine, which has caused so many needless deaths, including that of my mother, Elizabeth Van Hassel. My mother died from the blood doctrine. Her name is Elizabeth Van Hassel. She was only 32 years old when she passed away. My mother died because her mother made the choice for her not to have blood. Not only that, but there are people that you are shunning, and they are committing suicide over this. Please don't shun your family members. Please, I beg you, do not shun your family members. We love you. We care about you. We don't want you to shun us. We care about you.
It was your mother's
also,
choice.
Sir, do you let go of me, sir. You cannot be touching me. Do you practice?
My name. What's my name?
You're a Jehovah's Witness. That is against the law.
I really want people to look at my videos, and I want them to see an example of what they can do. I want them to see a human being suffering, because it's very real and it happens all the time. I want them to see hell in a human and see what that does to somebody.
Jehovah's Witnesses are continuing a more than month-long convention at the Santander Arena. It's expected to draw more than 25,000 Jehovah's Witnesses from 218 congregations in Pennsylvania.
Right when the convention was starting on Sunday morning, I was an attendant, and I just went on the XJW Reddit page and I just made a post that said they were checking lapel badges and making sure that no protesters got inside and started talking to people. 30 minutes into the Sunday convention, I see a comment from John Redwood.
My abuser's rights were protected and I was silenced.
My 4-year-old daughter was molested by a teenage boy in the Kingdom Hall.
It was very important to us as parents of a survivor of child sex abuse to let other parents know that there are abusers in the organization.
These elders who sit here on these judicial committees who know some of this stuff say at conventions and across the stage at congregations that we abstain from this type of stuff.
Report to the police, not to the elders. It's okay. It's okay to read. Thanks, guys. Good morning.
Their stock response is that Jehovah's Witnesses abhor child abuse. And they are correct. They do abhor child abuse. That's not the issue. The issue is, how do they handle a child abuse allegation? So here we have a group of elders that are debriefing a victim who has said that there were multiple men sexually assaulting her going all the way back to when she was 4 years of age. How old were you when this happened? Answer, 4 years old. Did he do anything of a sexual nature, like touch your private parts? Answer, yes. Can you tell us who was in the room? Answer, who was convicted of raping his half-sister. A blonde man was there, a red-haired man with a red beard, and who is the main perpetrator in the Palmer Leaks case. These documents represent the fact that there was an internal investigation at great depth into the crimes committed by this perpetrator and other perpetrators who were also Jehovah's Witnesses. The package of documents from Judas contained multiple cases of child sexual abuse, none of which were ever turned over to the police by the congregation elders. There was one case in particular called the Palmer Leaks, and this involved the Palmer congregation in Massachusetts. What we discovered is that the two daughters of this man, who was an elder for some period of time, had been viciously and severely abused by their father.
I knew that the Palmer congregation is just one congregation. I also knew that there were hundreds, maybe tens of thousands of cases that were not released, and this was just one case, a sample, so to speak.
I had no choice but to do something about it. If I didn't speak up, then this information would be buried forever.
When the Palmer Leaks came out, it was a big story. It was picked up by media all over the world. The documents were incendiary because these were essentially the first time that copies of database documents were seen by the public. By any estimation, there are tens of thousands of people named in the database. This was just a sample of what people imagined could be in the database.
The reason why I think they're so adamant in protecting these files is because they must have a concern of what these files are going to tell the world about their organization and how they don't protect children and instead protect these pedophiles and their brand, if you will.
Watchtower has sued the organization who was actually hosting the documents. But as a result of the release of those documents to not only the public but to the police, there is now an investigation by the police.
What it boils down to is people seeing firsthand a serious problem that is not otherwise ever going to be addressed by this large institution that's behind it.
I am on a mission. I haven't
seen or talked to my mother maybe 3 or 4 times in the last 3 or 4 years.
We set up a loose time and a loose date for us to meet up for coffee on the weekend. She disappears. I just don't hear from her.
She wasn't there, and I ended up finding out why, because she knew I would be there to be too painful for her to see. Instead, I ran into one of my abusers. I didn't see him until the very end. I just remember feeling like really angry and just upset. It infuriated me because this guy who helped my childhood, I kept thinking about, like, what about the next kid, I ended up finding out something happened that I couldn't be there to protect him. I couldn't be there to protect my family. I just felt useless and powerless because that's how the system is built, is for these child abusers to get away with this shit.
Watchtower's legal department looks for a loophole in how to escape mandatory reporting, because most states have mandatory reporting.
The Jehovah's Witnesses argue that all of this information by their religious tenets is to be kept confidential, no matter who gets to see it.
They tell the elders, you have no obligation to report.
That's their loophole that they've made and they've stuck to.
They want to manage their own judicial process, which includes child abuse. And because of that, we have this conflict between church and state.
I think they've become much more entrenched. They've become much more defiant. They have done very little to improve the risk factors that would lead up to child sexual abuse.
After the Atlantic article came out, the very next day, 2 elders from our local congregation made multiple attempts to reach us. It was obvious they were trying to bully us and to hold us accountable for speaking out.
My article for The Atlantic was a larger look at the Jehovah's Witness organization, at the religion, at their child sexual abuse issues, and it was also a profile of Mark O'Donnell.
The Atlantic article was released March 22nd, 2019, and exactly 1 day later, there were 2 elders that came to our front door. The 2 elders that had come to my home were elders that we were very familiar with. In fact, the first elder was the elder who conducted our marriage ceremony, and now he's at our door, and we were not there. Within a few weeks, we had received 2 certified letters, one to Kimmy, one addressed to me, and those letters were basically demanding that we come to a judicial hearing at the Perry Hall Kingdom Hall on the charge of causing divisions. They felt that we were somehow disrupting the congregation or causing divisions. I knew that they were seeking our disfellowshipping. I really didn't care as much as I did care about the effect that it had on my elderly mother. She is a faithful witness, and she has a very strong belief in the Bible and the resurrection. She doesn't have any other children, so we are the only family that she has. It would really hurt her to know that her only son has been disfellowshipped and can no longer speak to any witnesses whatsoever.
Now, as mentioned, we do have quite a few announcements, so please bear with me. First, this is to inform the congregation that Mark O'Donnell is no longer one of Jehovah's Witnesses. And this is to inform the congregation that Kimberly O'Donnell is no longer one of Jehovah's Witnesses.
I'm not a fool. I know that the organization goes after whistleblowers. It has for decades. Anyone who speaks out against the organization or its policies, they will be disfellowshipped. I really feel that the timing of our disfellowshipping says a lot about this organization. The fact that we would speak our truth and tell our story in the Atlantic, and we were disfellowshipped, it says a lot about the lengths that the organization of Jehovah's Witnesses will go to chase down a whistleblower.
Mark has absolutely had a huge impact and is likely to, I think Mark is at the very beginning of what he's doing. I think in the next 10 to 20 years, we're going to see the real breadth of impact that Mark is going to have.
We'll continue to do what we can to bring about transparency and bring about change, and to be here to support people as they leave. We had been married 15 years before we really opened up to one another. You can leave and be happy. You know, I'm happy.
I'm still terrified of what my family is going to say because, you know, I crash all those halls and everything, and I go out and I protest and everything, but I didn't really fully understand myself until actually just recently. I'm finally out as being a man, and I can't believe it took that long. Like, I still can't believe it took that long. So, yeah, my family would not be very pleased if they knew that not only am I trans, but I'm also gay. I think that'll shut the door forever.
It feels terrible. It feels awful to know that the mother that is supposed to love you doesn't want to see you because you changed your beliefs. I don't know if I'll have a relationship with my mom again. I mean, it's been years. That's probably my biggest fear is her passing away and me finding out months or years later. I wish that she could be a part of my life. I wish that she could, you know, see the production company I'm doing and even see the activism and see how good it is. I wish she could see the good things.
Here we go. All right. Second or first?
After we left the organization, it was nice to just exist as Mark and Kimmy and figure out who we were and what we liked and find that connection.
Yeah.
Here, thanks, Kimmy. Am I up?
Probably not. It's supposed to rain, I think. My legs hurt.
Tomorrow's supposed to rain. Like that. You can be friends with non-witnesses and they're not going to rob you or rape you.
There we go. Good.
News alert, according to their terminology and their doctrine, Mark and I will not be part of the new system.
Come on, Mark. You ready to run?
Nice shot.
We will be killed here at Armageddon if we don't die before then. We've had our final judgment. Yeah. But we do have freedom of thought, freedom to do what we want, right? So no longer living this temporary life. We're having fun, we're enjoying ourselves, we have, you know, real relationships. So now we're living.
Until Watchtower accepts that this is not strictly a moral failing, that there is a psychological problem, and that these people need help, they need medical attention, they need to be reported to the authorities, this is going to continue to happen.
I think if developments keep coming at the pace and rate that they have so far, within a few years' time, we'll be looking at, you know, one of the largest cover-ups of religious institutionalized sexual abuse that anyone has ever heard of.
If they had reported it immediately to the authorities, it would have prevented other children from getting molested. I have publicly made this statement since 2002, that it is not just a sin, it's a crime, and you report crime to the authorities.
The organization has changed over time. They've been forced to. They predicted the end of the world, and the end of the world hasn't come. So they've changed. They can change. But so far, they've shown no appetite to change in these areas.
The scriptures are very clear. Before a judicial committee can be convened, there has to be a confession or 2 witnesses. So we will never change our scriptural position on that subject.
And we get rid of all drafts. We no longer keep drafts. So once we've finalized our document, we clean out all drafts. And the reason is because there's many comments that are sometimes made on drafts. Those are the ones that get us in trouble. But we know that the scene of this world is changing, and we know Satan's coming after us. And he's going to go for us legally.
I want to be whoever I want to be. And that's why I left. Better your life, better yourself without that organization.
This is a brand new world for me and my family, but it's exciting.
I couldn't be happier now to be able to share my story and my truth with you.
The world needs to see that the Jehovah's Witnesses do not give a shit.
I hope that it helps somebody out there, that it touches some person who's still stuck in the cold.
There's so much to do in this world. It's a much bigger place than the witnesses make it seem to be, and a much more loving place.